Hello and welcome to a live Deprogram with Keri Smith. It's good to be back. Today is December 30th. It's almost a new year. It's almost 2025. And I figured we're just going to have a fun kind of celebratory show today. We're going to talk about some of the wins against woke ideology in the year of 2024 and just have a good time hanging out with one another. I don't know how many people are here. I know people are traveling for the holidays. But if you are here, welcome. If you're new here, I hope you have fun with the people in the chat. They're a lot of fun, and a lot of people disagree in this chat, but usually are very civil with one another. So I hope you'll enjoy that. I see some familiar faces here. Good to see you guys. I hope you're having a good holiday season. I'll just say, if you are a praying person, not everyone is, but if you pray, I got a lot of health things going on. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but it's like my body just decided at the end of the year, it's like, hey, it's the end of the year. Everything's gonna fall apart now. So if you pray, and you wanna pray for me, you can pray for my body. Pray for my body to get back on track. How about that? And if you have a prayer request, feel free to drop it in the chat. Ask people if you have your own prayer request for the end of the year. Put it in the chat. Anyway, it's good to see you guys, and I know everybody's like, seems like it's been a really busy, extra busy kind of holiday season, more than usual, and everyone I talk to's got a lot of stuff going on and traveling, and so we're gonna just take a moment, celebrate, hang out, look at some wins as we head into 2025, because sometimes, this has been a long fight. This culture war has been going on overtly for many years now. I would say covertly, it's been going on for decades, but I wasn't aware of it until around 2016 is when I started waking up. If you're new here, I used to be in the woke cult, the woke ideology, also called social justice ideology. This whole show is kind of about picking it apart and understanding it better. It's not liberalism. A lot of people who are in it think it's liberal, like I did, until you start to examine the things that it teaches you. Like, it's pro censorship, it's pro propaganda, it's pro violence. It's authoritarian in nature. It's all about government having more power and the people having less liberty, less freedom. Um, it's racist. It's extremely racist and sexist and divisive, and it's not all that much different from white supremacy. It just changes which identity groups are on top, but it's very illiberal. And so I started waking up to it in 2016. I was in the cult for 20 years before I left. And it seems like, it's been 8 years since I left the cult and have been talking about these issues. And in that time, there have been a lot of people who hit what James Lindsay calls their woke breaking point, where they wake up and they leave. There's a lot of people who are in the deprogrammed fellowship who are former wokies like myself who left it. Some of them are now conservative. Some are now just like classical liberal, libertarians. There's all, it runs the gamut. There's no particular formula of like, you have to be this. It's just, you're leaving one high control group, high control cult ideology, and you're moving into this place of freedom where you figure out what you think about things. You are an individual, and there's no set path. I do a lot of interviews. I've done a lot of interviews over the years on this show with people who have left woke like myself. Some have become Christians like me. Praise God. Some have not. I've interviewed atheists who've left woke. I've interviewed Muslims, Hindus who've left woke. I've interviewed people who are obviously gay people who are not woke, people who are what society calls trans people, people who have gender dysphoria or try and present themselves as if they're the opposite sex. I've interviewed trans people who are against woke, all different kinds of people. There's no particular, like, you have to do it this way. Now, as a Christian, I believe God is the antidote. I believe God is like the be all end all antidote. But I can't force that on people even if I wanted to. So, and I don't want people who are in woke, who I know a lot of them have a lot of prejudice against the idea of God. I did. And so the reason I try to talk to so many different people with different paths and different experiences is so that people who might be turned off by my path or by my beliefs in God, hey, look, well, I'm going to talk to this person who's this Orthodox Jewish person, for example, who's anti-woke, or this person who's Hindu and trans and anti-woke, and so that there's not one particular route you have to follow out, because a lot of people in modern society have built up a immunity, I would say, to hearing about God, or they're like, I'm anti-religion. I don't want to hear about that. And it's like, well, God and religion are sort of two different things, in my opinion. But still, I get it. So, okay, so that's what kind of went on a tangent there. That's what this channel's about. If you're new, I know there's always new people, so I'm going to wanted to share a little bit about that. And in that time of interviewing people who've left woke, people, cultural commentators, comedians, professors, all different kinds of people, in that time, those 8 years, there've been lots of people leaving woke. There's been a lot of, I would say, wins, battles, small battles, but the war is not over. We've won lots of battles this year. In 2024, I would say, was a watershed year. And in my opinion, people are always asking me, when's it going to end? In my opinion, we've turned a corner. It's not over. The war's not over. The culture war, the spiritual war is not over by any means. But I think we are on a path now where I was saying to my husband, I think that people pushing back against this have done enough in the past 8 years to where now there's more of a comfortable space for normies, for normal people, people who don't spend all their time online. Maybe they're not as aware of these issues. They don't think a lot about ideology and culture and where things are headed. People who maybe they don't think of big picture stuff like that. And people who are just sort of like going with the flow in terms of ideology and culture and everything. Those people, we have created enough space for them to laugh at woke now. We've created enough space for normies and people who used to be sort of woke adjacent to make fun of woke. Have you noticed this in your life? I have. I've noticed normies who it's not like they've become passionate culture warriors or they're out there speak, but they've in society and culture, we've created enough space for them to take pot shots at woke ideology. And you and I both know, if you've been on this journey as long as I have, if you've been here for a while, you and I both know that this would not have been the case even like 4 years ago. Normies didn't feel comfortable making fun of woke. Most of them would still just like go along with the woke cultural trends, because it's the dominant religion in America today. Woke ideology is, and they would go along with it like, oh, I better put the black square on my profile. Oh, I better put the rainbow flag this month. I gotta tell people I'm an ally, otherwise they won't know. They would like go along with all that stuff. And I feel like there's more space for them now to say, you know what? No. Or just to make little jokes here and there, just to take some of the piss out of woke. That's a change. That's a huge change. Have you guys noticed this with people in your life? Jeremy says we're abnormies. Jeffrey says. I love that. Anyway. Yes. Yes, Jeffrey says he's noticed it too. Yes. There's more normies taking the piss out of woke a little bit. And that's a great thing. And I noticed in the comments on when I announced this video for today on the YouTube community page, somebody said, oh gosh, what did they say? Oh, they said it feels like we're returning more to the 90s culturally in terms of the language people can use. People feel comfortable. The woke, just like any cult, they have like a purity cult or religious cult. They have all these language controls. That's the way they control people, is they control your thoughts and how they control what you think by controlling what you're allowed to say. And so they do all these language controls, and there's always new words that are now problematic, like spirit animal is now racist. You can't say that, right? And there's always new and when you're in that cult, like I was, you have this you develop this internal censor that's like, you're constantly making sure you don't say one of the bad words or you get in trouble because that's so offensive and insensitive. Somebody, I think I told you guys, somebody this year, maybe it was the end of last year, told me, in seriousness, you're not supposed to say master bedroom anymore because master makes people think of slavery. And like, what? No, or master degree is offensive. No, it's not offensive. It's not. Get over it. And I think we've gotten to I think that person in the comments was right. We've gotten to the place where people are starting to use words that are like, you know what? I'm going to say it. It's like the Louis C.K. joke where he says, gosh, what's that joke? My husband's a big fan of his. It's the joke about how you're not supposed to say gay anymore. Don't say gay. And he's like, well, or no, it's the F. It's the F word. I actually don't like saying that one personally. But he says, well, I would never call a gay person that. Like, I'm just going to call someone who's being that, right? Sort of like with retarded. He would say, like, I would never call a mentally handicapped person that. I'm only going to call you that if you're being retarded. Like, words like that, people are now kind of like, you know what? I'm going to say it because it's stupid. It's ridiculous that we're like, put so much power, give words so much power that it's like never to be uttered, right? So that's where I think we are. I think we're in a good place where we've created space where normies can now mock woke. But we're going to look at some of the specific wins so we can feel good. Yeah, Mark, it was the Melanie Mac word. I don't like that word personally. I don't feel like saying it. Okay. Let's start with this. The biggest win against woke in 2024 is without a doubt the Trump winning the election. As you know, if you follow this channel for any amount of time, I really don't trust our elections I would say, with good reason. And I knew he had it in terms of, I wasn't worried about where the country was at culturally. And I knew he had it because I knew even more liberals voting for him this time around, even more liberals and people who left woke who voted for him this time around. I knew he had it if it were a fair election. I just didn't trust it to be fair. And so him winning shocked me. And here we go. Oh, Mr. Generation. Yeah, he says now the biggest one was Trump surviving that assassination attempt. Yeah, right? Two assassination attempts he survived. And then he wins the election. So this is him. Now, a lot of woke people who are still woke. How could you still be woke at the end of 2024? How lame are you? Anyway, a lot of people woke. Were really pissed off by this. He was at the Turning Point USA conference. This happened a couple weeks ago, I think it was. And he really took aim at woke. This is after his win. And this little clip has a lot of people upset. We're going to watch it because it doesn't have me upset. Pretty happy about this. Let's start with this. This is good.
Woke is bullshit. And as Commander-in-Chief, I will restore the proud and historic names of our great military bases like Fort Bragg. We're going to get them back. And woke has to stop because along with everything else, it's destroying our country. We're going to stop woke. Woke is bullshit.
That just cracks me up. Because you know how mad that makes him. But he's right. Here's the thing. It's true and it's funny. It's true and it's funny. It's funny that he's so blunt. And it's true. Woke is bullshit. It is destroying our country. That just is the biggest win. To have a president who is aware of this ideological problem, this cultural problem, this spiritual problem, this problem in our country and in all of the West, and to have him a president who's got a team. If at the very least, I don't know how aware he is about specifics, but at the very least, he's got a team of people who get it. There are some people on this team who get it. That makes me very happy. That's a huge win going into 2025. I hope he does some of the stuff that he did the first time he was president, when he did an executive order against DEI in government labs, and taxpayers paying for these racist DEI workshops where they separate people by race and they program them with all this woke cult bullshit about this race is like this and this race is like this, and you got to treat this race this way and you got to treat that race that, all this racist crap. He cut that. What did Biden do when he got in there? Reversed it. He did so many DEI executive orders. Biden did. I can't wait for Trump to just rip those up. Get in there and reverse all of them. I cannot wait. Another thing that's coming with Trump as part of his win that I'm excited about is what they kind of tongue-in-cheek call DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And this is something, it's just, they're kind of jokingly calling this, but it's an advisory committee, and it's going to be made up of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, is how you say his last name. And the two of them are basically supposed to look at do an audit of all of the federal government, figure out what's wasteful, what's woke bullshit, and cut it. And if this happens, knock on wood, I'm still a skeptical person, I would say. I'm a bit cynical and skeptical at some things. But if this works, the idea is they make recommendations to the president. Here's what needs to be cut. And then once their job is done, they cut Doge, which is great. Self-deleting, right? So I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about the possibility of reducing the size of the federal government, and especially getting rid of the parts of it that are based around pushing this evil, racist, collectivist, anti-American, illiberal ideology called woke, pushing DEI, pushing critical race theory, pushing queer theory. Cut all of it. Pushing women's, it used to be called women's studies. Now it's called, this is the thing with woke and the language police, right? They're always moving the bar further. They're like, women's studies is now offensive. Now it's called gender studies. Cut all of that crap. Anything that's about like, oh, let's treat people as members of identity groups rather than as individuals. That's anti-American. Cut it. You shouldn't be indoctrinating people with Marxism, which is what it is. It's identity Marxism. Hey, Jacob. Jacob's over at Rumble. We also are simulcasting on Rumble if you prefer watching over there. He says, "What's up, savages?" Good to see you. Okay, so biggest win. And we don't have time to go into all the other things, possibilities that are going to come with a Trump presidency, but obviously I'm very excited about a lot of these possibilities. I would love to see him cut the whole Department of Education. Yes, I would. Do you know what happened after the Department of Education wasn't even around until the 70s? If you look at, I saw the other day a chart. I didn't have this pulled up because I didn't think I was going to mention it, but a chart of our national test scores and literacy rates. And do you know when it started dropping off? After we created the Department of Education, after the federal government decided that they were the best ones to educate children. Yeah. So there's a lot of great things to come with the Trump presidency. Biggest win of 2024 is him becoming our president again. Very excited. Oh, hey, Yarn and Chicken. Hello, good to see you. Thank you for the super chat for $4.99. She says, it's over when teenage boys constantly mock it at school. My high school son and his friends call each other racists and bigots as a joke. Yes. Yes, that's when it's over. That's what I mean. Thank you so much. I won't say your name because I can't remember if you're anonymous online. I won't say your name, Yarn and Chicken, but I love you. I love this good news. Thanks for sharing this anecdote. I think you're right. People now, it's just I know normies who make jokes like this now too, and they wouldn't have done this just a few short years ago, where they call everything racist. It's like, oh, you're a racist. Oh, you're like, as a joke. That's the place we've reached. So hopefully, I think we're turning a corner on woke. Okay. Okay, so Trump winning, biggest win against woke in 2024. Now here's some victories, some battles that were won this year. Let's look at this one. This was a big win. Oh my goodness. This was huge. So a lot of us who were, I would say, based being reality based in reality. Obviously, if you were reality based, you've been witnessing and sometimes experiencing yourself the censorship from these big tech companies working hand in hand with the government for the past 4 years. And even before that, on their own, but under the Biden administration working hand in hand with the government, right? Which is fascism, by the way. It's kind of isn't it a little fascist for the federal government to tell big corporations to censor on their behalf because they're not allowed to use the big corporations to do it for them? That's what the Biden administration was doing. The Twitter files came out, they proved this. A lot of leftists, a lot of people who consider themselves liberal but are actually in the illiberal woke cult, they don't even know about the Twitter file. They still don't know about the Twitter files. They haven't read them. They don't know that this was happening. They don't know. I've talked to people, well-meaning people, well-intentioned people, but if they're in that bubble, they don't know these things. A lot of them didn't even realize the kind of stuff that was being censored the past 4 years. I've had to talk to people in real life about, like, yeah, I posted a scientific study that got removed on Facebook because Facebook was constantly during the COVID years removing anything, any kind of study. They were removing scientists. Twitter was removing scientists, award-winning scientists. They were cutting them, like, oh, we're going to cut your mic, basically, because I don't like the science you're talking about. I don't like the studies you're sharing. I don't like the facts that you're sharing. And I had a study removed. I had just shared it. I didn't even offer commentary. And Facebook said, look at the new terms of service. Your post is being removed. I'm like, so I looked at the new terms of service and it said, hey, from now on, the new term, because they were constantly updating their terms of service during COVID years. They said, now we're going to start removing things, even if they're factual, even scientific studies. We're going to start removing things, even if they're factual, if they might promote vaccine hesitancy. That's what it said. So they took down a study. They took down information. They put themselves in charge of propaganda, censorship and propaganda. And I've had friends on the left in that bubble who didn't know stuff like this was happening. Although you and I, those of you who've been awake this whole time, who lived through it, you know, sometimes through personal experience, the degree to which they were going to censor true information, to take down facts, to shut up and silence scientists who were raising questions, doctors who were raising questions, people who were sharing studies. They even on YouTube would take down stuff about vitamin C, just about how vitamin C is good for you. They're like, not right now. We're not going to let you talk about vitamin C or vitamin D right now. Why? Because it might cause vaccine hesitancy. What? They were really doing this. They took down a video of mine and gave me a 30-day strike for interviewing people who whose employers were trying to coerce them and force them to make a certain medical decision. And just for letting these people, many of whom worked in the healthcare industry themselves, just by letting these people tell their stories and what their employees were demanding of them, Facebook said, you can't do that. You can't let them talk about what's happening to them. They took the video down and I got a strike for 30 days. Isn't that crazy? This stuff was happening. If you're just waking up, I know, because I've talked to some of you in real life, this stuff is shocking to you, but all of this was happening. Okay, so one of the big wins was we got confirmation of it this year. So not just from the Twitter files, but this year, Zuckerberg came out, the Facebook files. Zuckerberg admitted. He said, yes, this happened. He admitted. Here's a headline from PBS. I know you people on the left love PBS. You think it's unbiased, so let's read from them. PBS. Zuckerberg says the White House pressured Facebook to censor some COVID-19 content during the pandemic. Hell yeah, they did. This is an article from PBS, August 27, 2024. By the way, it wasn't just COVID stuff. We know from the Twitter files that there were multiple 3-letter agencies under the Biden administration, under the direction of the Biden administration, that were meeting with Twitter and telling them what to remove, when to censor stuff about Hunter Biden, the laptop, all of this stuff, like telling them what to take down. Let's just read a little bit from this, though. This is just a sweet confirmation. This is, you know what this is good for? We already knew this, right? But this is good because people who are in that bubble, they don't care they don't listen to us. So him coming out and admitting this, and leftist outlets like PBS covering it, this is great. These are the kind of things that can lead to more people waking up. So Meta, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg says senior Biden administration officials pressured Facebook to censor some COVID-19 content during the pandemic and vowed that the social media giant would push back if it faced such demands again. Yeah, well, I'll believe that when I see it. You guys are still censoring stuff. I know it. I've experienced it. In a letter to Representative Jim Jordan, the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Zuckerberg alleges that the officials, including those from the White House, repeatedly pressured Facebook for months to take down certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. Those of you who've been in Facebook jail for your memes, you know, you experienced this firsthand. There's a lot of people who serve time in Facebook jail for comedy. The officials expressed a lot of frustration, that's a quote, when the company didn't agree, he said in the letter. He said, "I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it." Zuckerberg wrote this in the letter dated August 26 and posted on the committee's Facebook page and to its account on X. The letter is the latest repudiation by Zuckerberg of efforts to target misinformation around the coronavirus pandemic during and after the 2020 presidential election, particularly as allegations have emerged that some posts were deleted or restricted wrongly. I also think we made some wrong choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we would not make today. Yeah, you don't say. You made some wrong choices. Yeah. Quote, "We're ready to push back if something like this happens again." Are you? Again, I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. In response, the White House said in a statement that, quote, "When confronted with a deadly pandemic, this administration encouraged responsible actions to protect public health and safety." Liars. 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 Responsible action is not censoring facts and truth and scientists and doctors and science. It's not while saying you're the party of science, you freaking sociopaths. That's not a responsible action to protect public health and safety. Liars. You guys told people to give the vaccine to their children. You guys told people to put masks on kids, which had such a deleterious effect that children are now, like, the CDC had to push back the milestones, the developmental milestones at which children learn how to speak and how many words they know how to speak at certain ages when they're toddlers. They pushed all of that back as a result of you guys telling people to put masks on kids. You liars, you filthy, disgusting liars. You guys put COVID patients in nursing homes and killed people. You guys coerced, and in some cases forced, in the case of federal employees, you forced some people to take an experimental treatment. And yes, it was experimental. If something hasn't been around long enough for longitudinal studies, that's the very definition of experimental. You allowed Big Pharma, you allowed them to not be held responsible for any vaccine injuries. You said, because we're going to put this out under emergency use authorization. So if anything bad happens with this drug, this treatment rather, that hasn't been around long enough for longitudinal studies, so we don't know what the side effects are going to be. If anything bad happens, American citizens can't sue. Why? Because the government gave them cover, because we put it out under emergency use. You guys are liars and assholes. I'm going to stop reading this one because I'm starting to get angry and we're supposed to be celebrating. The big celebration here. Let's get back to fun time. Let's get back to the good part. The good part is that Zuckerberg admitted that they did all this, that the Biden administration, that the government came in and told big tech, and we knew they did this with the Twitter files and the Facebook files, with all the leaks. They came in and told them and pressured them and coerced them to censor and to censor truth from the American people. This is they got around the First Amendment. Do you get this? The government used corporations to do it for them. It's fascism, guys. All of you guys who think you're anti-fascist, it's fascism. Go look up the definition of fascism. A lot of you guys just say stuff. Those of you in the leftist cult, you just say stuff. You don't even know what these words mean. Honestly, you don't. There's no depth to you. You're like shallow thinkers. And I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying your mind has been put in a cage, sometimes by you, and you don't think deeply. You're not allowed to when you're in a cult. Okay, so that was a big win. Zuckerberg admitting. I've got a couple here of I meant to cover these about Trump winning. I guess it's not too late. I moved on to Zuckerberg, but let's go ahead and let me just show this. We're going to back up for a second about the Trump win, because this is really, really cool, and something we're celebrating is to look at these, look at the maps. Here we go. Okay. This is the 2024 election map as shown on the New York Times. And it's just sweet, sweet victory. Look at all that red. Donald Trump, 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226. Look at all of these states. Look at the ones that flipped. All these dark red ones with the lines. These are the ones that flipped red this time. It's just beautiful to watch. And this is even more exciting. Look at this. NBC News article. Trump showed larger than average gains. Larger than average gains. So not just average gains, even more, even better gains among the highly educated, Asian Americans, and Black people. Also Latinos. I don't know why they didn't put that in this headline, but also Latinos. An analysis of census data shows how changes in the electorate pushed Trump towards victory. And then this is an article from November 23rd, by the way, NBC News. Inside Donald Trump's victory are thousands of small shifts in how Americans voted. Nationwide, 85.2% of counties voted for Trump. 85.2% of counties. I got a map of that here. Look at this. Can you see this one yet? Here we go. Look at this map. Look at all these count. Look at all that red. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know who that is? You know who that is, leftists? It's not flyover states. It's not somebody you can just deride as like, oh, it's all crazy extremist right wingers. It's all this, all that. No, you know who is included in that color there, as we just saw in the article. We can go back to it, but a larger than average gain in Black votes, Hispanic votes, Asian votes, highly educated voters. You know who else is in that red there? Liberals like myself, a bunch of people who left woke, a lot of libertarians, a lot of people like who used to be Democrats who are like, I don't care. Nothing makes sense anymore. The parties don't. You got crazy, creepy, evil people like Dick Cheney talking about voting for Kamala, and then you got these sane, I would say sane, reasonable, rational-minded Democrats who are like, you know what? I'm leaving the party, like Tulsi Gabbard. I'm going to vote for Trump. You got people on the left like RFK Jr. saying, okay, throwing in for Trump. So that is just a huge coalition of people. And you know what we were voting against? We're voting for Trump. Do you know what we're voting against in this election? Woke. That's it. That's what we're voting against. This evil, country-ruining ideology that puts identity groups over individualism. It's backwards. We're not going back to the past. We're not going to let you drag us back into this racist, crazy, divisive, illiberal world. We're voting against that. You know, some of the other interesting wins? I think it was this article. Is it this one or this one? One of these articles talks about how Trump actually made gains in places in New York and California. Let me see. Let me go back to that map for a second. I think it might be this article. But look at California, for example. I used to live in Los Angeles. I lived there for 15 years. I did my time there. Those areas are still blue, but look at all of this red. And somebody in the chat was saying that there were gains made in LA and the Fairfax. Who said that? Kevin Anderson? Although LA County, you're talking about Los Angeles went for Kamala. I heard the Fairfax district went for Trump. That's amazing. I know the Fairfax district. By the way, that's Fairfax district. If I'm not wrong, Kevin, is very Jewish area of Los Angeles. Went for Trump. It's just amazing. Here, let's look at some of this. Let me go back to this piece. Now, this is the piece about Trump showed larger than average gains among the highly educated Asian Americans and Black people. Okay. Nationwide, 85.2% of counties voted for Trump. And comparing how each county voted from the 2020 election to 2024, the median vote margin in the country shifted to the right 3.2 percentage points. That's if you believe the 2020 results, though, which you guys want us to believe. So let's believe them for the sake of this article. Key here is that Trump built on his 2020 performance, even in counties he lost, while Vice President Kamala Harris struggled to match President Joe Biden's 2020 numbers. Again, this is if you believe the 2020 number, but you guys want us to, so I guess she struggled to beat them. Underperforming in 3 of every 4 counties. This resulted in a reshaping of the electoral map across demographic lines, according to an NBC News analysis of the U.S. Census Bureau data and election results. The analysis found Asian American communities saw significant rightward shifts in the north. And again, I don't even think all this is rightward. It's just Trump shifts. We voted for Trump. That's what happened. It's a Trump shift. Asian American communities saw significant rightward shifts. In the Northeast and West, average margin shifted 6.4 and 6 points, respectively. Trump made inroads in the Northeast, growing his vote total by 7%. But the shift owes largely to Harris's underperformance in both regions. The rightward shift of Black voters in the South also exceeded the nation as a whole. I love it. I love it. And you know what? I have to think part of this has to do with Harris being so out of touch and tone deaf and doing the thing that Hillary Clinton used to try to do. Because whenever Harris, we watched some of those videos on this channel, whenever Harris would campaign in the South, and if it was a predominantly Black audience, she would suddenly switch into this fake Southern Black accent. And it's like, you didn't even grow up in the South. What are you doing? Why are you talking like that? It was sort of like when Hillary Clinton talked about having hot sauce in her bag. Which I know people made fun of her, but at least she's from the South. Maybe she does have hot sauce in her bag. But Kamala Harris, remember when she took that picture standing with the collard greens? Like, look, I eat collard greens, Black people. And the Black voters in the South were like, They were like, no, you liar. Quit pandering to us. That's the best. That's the chef's kiss. That's the chef's kiss, is that they said, no, it's not going to work. It didn't work. You lost ground with Southern Black voters, Kamala. Maybe you shouldn't insult their intelligence and pretend like, I sure do talk like this when I'm around. Like, stop it. Oh, man. I sure do hope you'll vote for me. I love eating some collard greens. Stop it. They were like, no, okay. So that was exciting. And then look at this. Areas with high concentrations of high school graduates saw some of the steepest Democratic declines. I like this one because you know how they're always going on about, oh, it's low educated people who vote for Trump, low educated. I know this one stings. That's why I like this one. First of all, when they say that, being highly educated today is not a win. If you're going to a university like I went to Duke University, in the old days, yeah, that's like, oh wow, you went to Duke. Nowadays, it's sort of like, ugh, what kind of brainwashed zombie are you? That's where I became brainwashed. That's where I got filled up with the woke ideology. These kids who are going to these institutions ever since the late 90s, they're not being taught how to think, they're being taught what to think. They're churning out these automatons, these cult members who, like I said, have put their mind in a cage, who are spouting all this woke, illiberal, Marxist bullshit. So when they like to brag about like, oh, highly educated people vote for the Democrats, it's like, that's not saying anything great. Of course they do. But that being said, I just happen to like this one. The fact that highly educated people were shifting towards Trump, that he had a lot of gains with highly educated people, I guess. I like this to mention this one only because I know it stings. They hate it. They hate it. So that's kind of fun. There you go. Vote shifts by region, race, and ethnicity. The national median vote shifted Trump's way 3.2 percentage points from 2020 to 2024. Among certain groups in certain regions, the shift was much larger. And you can look here, Asian Americans, they have it divided, the West, the North, that you can see 6 point vote shift, 6.4, Black people in the South, 5.2 points they shifted. Southern Blacks, 5.2 points they shifted to Trump, away from Kamala, away from fake blacks and Kamala. Latinos in the Midwest shifted 6 points to Trump. It's just amazing. Look at this. NBC News looked at several demographic groups and which counties have the largest percentage of a particular group living there. As of the latest Census Bureau survey, which publishes estimates. Okay. Specifically, the roughly 300 counties in the top 10% of each group. For example, Hinds County in Mississippi has one of the highest concentrations of Black people in the country, while Alameda County, California, with Asian Americans making up 32% of its population, has one of the highest concentrations of Asian Americans. Experts point to turnout and dissatisfaction with the economy. Guess what? People care about the economy. Imagine that, leftists. People care about being able to provide for their family. Imagine that. Kind of hard to sell your bullshit leftist identity Marxist ideology to people who can't feed their families. They have more important things to worry about. And I saw a lot of you, and you sounded like crazy, ridiculous, out of touch elitists after the election results. I saw a lot of you on Twitter and stuff. You left us saying, mocking people and saying, I hope the price of eggs is worth it. Yeah, it is. All smiles over here. And hopefully the price of eggs will go down. And hopefully the price of gas will go down. And hopefully people will be able, the dollar will go further. It's going to take a lot to put a dent in inflation and put a dent in, oh my gosh, our debt. I mean, but yeah, all smiles over here. And you mocking people about the price of eggs shows that all it shows is that you don't have to worry about it, I guess. But a lot of people do. Dissatisfaction with the economy was the number one driver. Of course it was. Look at this. Coleman pointed out exit polls showing a shift among Hispanic men. Added that Black men may have either voted more for Trump or less for Harris. Either way, Trump win. Asian Americans in both the Northeast and West shifted towards Trump. In California, Merced County, with one of the highest Asian American populations in the country, went for Trump. Despite its voters throwing their weight behind Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Biden in 2020, they went for Trump this time. That's like that county in Texas that we've talked about that's like 98% Latino, and it went for Trump. Overwhelmingly for Trump. I love it. I love it. Okay. Let me stop sharing that one for now. We've spent enough time on the election. Going to move on to some more specific wins. So we covered Facebook having to admit that Biden's administration, the federal government, pressured them to censor news from the American people. So we looked at that. Here, let's see. I'm going to put this one at the end. It's more of an overall thing. This one. Let's look at some of the companies that learned a lesson about woke in 2024. Let's start with Tractor Supply. This is just a fun episode, isn't it? I'm enjoying it. I hope you are. Looking at the wins. I should have called this episode Co-Parter Leftists. Co-Parter. Okay. This is a Forbes article. It's called Lessons from Tractor Supply's Sudden Reversal on Its Commitment to DEI. This was a big one this year. Tractor Supply was not the only one. There were several companies. I'm just going to name a few of them. These are companies that have all rolled back their DEI policies, their diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in 2024. Walmart, Microsoft, Facebook, Zoom, Lowe's, Ford, Tractor Supply, John Deere, Toyota. Did I say Toyota? It's a whole crazy list. These are all wins. I wish I had the little sound effects. I'd be like, yay, for each one. Okay. Yeah, Bud Light was last year, Russ. Harley Davidson, did they also, Russ? Let me look that one up. I didn't have that one on my list. Yes, in August of 2024, Harley Davidson announced it stopped its DEI program. The list just gets bigger and bigger. I love it. Okay, let's start with Tractor Supply and we'll look at some of the others. Okay, lessons from Tractor Supply's sudden reversal on its commitment to DEI. Now, this, by the way, I'm going to warn you, this article is from a butthurt leftist. A company that publicly proclaims and touts a set of principles and values, but suddenly walks away from them, runs the risk of creating a crisis for the organization and its brand. Tractor Supply Company, which bills itself as the country's largest rural lifestyle retailer, is a case in point. The company's sudden reversal last month of its publicized years-long commitment to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is a cautionary tale about the challenges when serving a diverse customer base in these highly politicized times. It's also instructive on what can go wrong when making public statements about sensitive, hot-button issues. Setting and achieving DEI goals. In 2021, Tractor Supply strengthened and increased its goals in several DEI-related areas. Last year, the company received national recognition for its inclusive workplace when it was featured on Bloomberg's Gender Equality Index for the second year in a row, and in Newsweek's inaugural list of America's greatest workplaces for diversity. But Tractor Supply's embrace of DEI changed abruptly in June, when it was the target of a social media campaign by Robbie Starbuck. A conservative, look at how they have to like take a pot shot here. A conservative podcast host and unsuccessful Republican congressional candidate in Tennessee. On June 6th, Starbuck wrote on X that it was time to expose Tractor Supply, which he said was one of conservatives' most beloved brands. Yes, but was at odds with their values. He pointed to its DEI hiring practices, in office Pride Month decorations, climate change activism, and funding sex changes, among other complaints, NPR reported. Starbucks' campaign took its toll on Tractor Supply. 3 weeks later, the company announced it was abandoning its embrace of DEI by eliminating its DEI goals and staff, would stop providing data to the Human Rights Campaign, which is a big old woke organization, right? Cancel sponsorships of Pride festivals. Wonderful. Why are you sponsoring this this Marxist religious festival anyway. That's what it is. It's not about gay people. It's not what it's about. It's an identity Marxist religious celebration. Why are you putting money in that crap? And no longer pursue its carbon emission goals. I mean, just amazing. What drove Tractor Supply to take these steps? Quote, "We have heard from customers that we have disappointed them. We have taken this feedback to heart," the company said. So, lesson in this for 2024 and in all of these companies rolling back their DEI crap, their brainwashing, their bullshit, their wasteful woke identity Marxist stuff is that making your voice heard and complaining to these companies when you don't like the direction they're taking actually does something, actually works. And the bigger message to take away is that yes, the tide is shifting. Because there are enough people coming out against woke now and speaking now, which we couldn't have even imagined 8 years ago. There are enough people speaking against it now that it's becoming uncool, that people are starting to realize how racist it is, how sexist it is, how built on dividing people based on identity it is, how it promotes, it chooses racism and sexism over meritocracy, over merit. Enough people are waking up to that and voicing their concerns that these companies are finally taking notice and doing something about it. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. This Tractor Supply one, I want to move on because I have a whole list. Here's another headline about it. This one was from AP. Tractor Supply is ending DEI and climate efforts after conservative backlash online. When? Celebration. When? I just love it. The company added it would, quote, "stop sponsoring non-business activities such as pride festivals or voting campaigns." Thank you. I don't need Tractor Supply to be running voting campaigns. What are you doing? Sell me a tractor. No, I'm kidding. Sell me some skirting for my house renovations. Like, quit trying to tell me about ideology, about Marxist ideology. Quit trying to tell me about voting or who I should vote for, or, stop it. Get back to doing what you're supposed to be doing. I don't need you virtue signaling for me. It's just the fact that we even got to this place. It's just amazing. Okay, moving on. That was Tractor Supply. This is Toyota. Toyota follows growing trend of companies halting DEI policies and initiatives. Woohoo! This was published October 4th this year, 2024. The subheadline here is several other companies like Ford and John Deere have also distanced themselves from woke programs. This is an article in Fox Business. There's many articles about it. This is the first one that came up. Toyota Motor Company is planning to move away from DEI and pro-LGBTQ events after recently facing online controversy, according to a new report. Bloomberg reported the company sent out a memo to its U.S. employees Thursday saying it will, quote, narrow community activities to align with STEM education and workforce readiness. Great, Toyota. That's all you need to be concerned about. How to make your company better, to make a more productive and successful company, how to make your cars safer and more efficient, and how to make sure your workforce is prepared for the job they're about to do. That's all you need to be concerned with, is making a great car and selling a great car. That's it. So they said they're going to be no longer participating in the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. I love it. I love it. This is a huge win. Huge. I used to, back when I was woke in the woke world, I used to participate in a lot of Human Rights Campaign agendas. The comedians I represented, we would often let HRC table outside of the shows. We would do ticket packages for them where people could buy a meet and greet in addition to the ticket to the show. And the extra money would be donated to the HRC. Like, we did voter drives for them. We did all kinds of woke propaganda for them. They're one of these nonprofit orgs that exists solely to push an identity Marxist agenda. it pretends to be about gay people and advancing rights for gay people. It's not. It's about pushing woke ideology. And it's a great thing to see these corporations pulling out and saying, you know what, not going to be a part of that crap anymore. Robbie Starbuck, for example, this is a guy who had a lot of wins in 2024. If you're not already following him on Twitter, you should be. He does a great job. His name was mentioned in the Tractor Supply one, and it's mentioned here in the Toyota one. It says 1 week earlier, anti-woke activist and filmmaker Robbie Starbuck detailed several woke initiatives within the company, including funding groups that oppose laws to ban gender transition treatments. That's like the HRC. On minors, to ban gender transition treatments on minors. Forming employee resource groups divided by race and gender orientation. That's what? That's racist. That's sexist. What is gender orientation, by the way? There's no such thing. You're either male or female. There's sex, biological sex. They were dividing people by race and sex for these employee groups. That's racist and sexist. This is what woke does, though. It is racist and sexist. So they said they're not going to be part of that, doing that anymore. And Toyota was sponsoring a drag queen program at a summer camp for children, for kids. Drag is for adults. Just like burlesque is for adults. Strip clubs are for adults. There are certain things we protect children from. Drag is not for kids. Why on earth were you doing this in the first place, Toyota? But we know why. I'm just glad you woke up. I'm glad there was enough pressure and you woke up. This is a win. This is a win against woke. Toyota halting all this DEI, drag for kids bullshit. Stop sharing that one. By the way, I don't know. I haven't looked at the chat in a while, but I'm sorry I said a few swear words today. It's the end of the year. I have a couple, I feel like I have a lot. I didn't use a lot of swear words this year at all. So I've got a lot saved up. Does it work that way? I don't think so, but I'm just kidding. I do apologize if you don't like hearing those words. Sorry. Hey, Mr. Tickle Trunk is here, and he's got a Santa hat. Mr. Tickle Trunk, I miss seeing you. I haven't been able to do the Toxic Femme shows recently because of my new work schedule. I miss seeing you guys over Nina and over on Midnight's Edge. Nina and Tom and everybody. Good to see you, but thank you for gifting 10 memberships here to Deprogrammed. If you got one of those, you can thank Mr. Tickle Trunk. You can go check out Midnight's Edge, where he's every Monday night with the Toxic Femme crew hanging out. John West. Hello, John West. Thank you for the super chat for $10. Says, I think another big win was Bill Ackman waking up and being so vocal against Harvard and anti-Semitism and woke in general. You're right, John. That was a huge win. I didn't even have that one on my list, but I'm going to pull it up for later. So he hit his woke breaking point this year. Actually, I've got a great article pulled up about it. Thank you for that. I'll get to that one later, John. Thank you. Movies America. Hey, Movies America for $2. Good to see you. You guys go check out Movies America. Movies America says, being woke is like being the smelly kid in class. Yes. In 2025, woke will be boring. It's still all the other things. It is a collectivist ideology. It is illiberal. It's for censorship and violence. It is authoritarian. It's for like government rights over individual liberty. It's all of these things. It's for government force. It's all of these things. It's anti-free speech. But it's racist. It's sexist. It's built around, it uses racism and sexism anyway as cover to push Marxism. But more than that, finally, in 2025, woke is going to be so boring, so uncool, so yesterday. And I'm looking forward to it. That's where we're at. It's like being the smelly kid in class. Nobody wants to be woke. Jardum, good to see you for £2. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I'm wishing you a happy new year. I wish you a happy new year. It's going to be a great year. There are going to be a lot of battles. Don't get me wrong, but I'm excited about what's to come. I hope you guys are too. Okay. So we looked at Tractor Supply. We looked at Toyota. Let's do some quick hits through some of these. Ford. Look at all the I can't keep track of all the wins this year. This is an article from CNN. Ford becomes the latest company to scale back its diversity and inclusion policies. This is from August 29th, 2024. This is another big win. Ford scaling back the woke. Ford is changing some of its diversity and inclusion policies, joining a growing list of companies, altering their approaches amid a changing legal and political environment and online pressure from the right. Hey, and from liberals. We hate this crap too. You know why we hate this crap? You know why we're pressuring these companies to drop this crap? Because it's racist and sexist. We hate it. We hate it. Ford CEO Jim Farley sent an email to employees Wednesday that the company has changed some of its policies in the past year. It has shifted its employee resource groups' focus and ended participation in external culture surveys by the Human Rights Campaign. They're all pulling out of the Human Rights Campaign. It's awesome. Woohoo! In 2017, Ford boasted about its recognition from the organization. Wow, look at the progress. So 7 years ago, 2017, they were bragging about being recognized by the HRC. Recognition from the organization as one of the best places to work for LGBTQ equality. Okay, they were bragging about it. Cut to 2024, and they're like, you know what? Not going to work with you guys anymore. I love it. Look whose name is mentioned in the Ford thing, too. Robbie Starbuck again. Give it up for Robbie Starbuck. If you go and congratulate him on Twitter, tell him that here at Deprogrammed, we were bragging on all the stuff he was a part of this year, and and that we're grateful. Say that to him. Robbie Starbuck, right-wing activist Robbie Starbuck. I love they call him right-wing activist. Okay. Posted a copy of the email on X and took credit, saying he had told the automaker he was looking into their policies. Ford confirmed the accuracy of the email to CNN. Quote, we are mindful that our employees and customers hold a wide range of beliefs, Farley wrote in the email. The external and legal environment related to political and social issues continues to evolve. Yeah, it does. We're evolving right out of woke. We're going to stop devolving into woke. We're going to evolve out of it. Farley said that Ford remains committed to creating an, quote, inclusive workspace and building a team that leverages diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and thinking styles. Ford joins Harley Davidson. I do like, let me one comment on this. This part here that they added, they're still using this language, the cult language, right? But to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe for the first time ever, they're thinking about what these words really mean. But because this part here gives me hope. They said thinking styles, diverse thinking styles. In other words, diverse ideas, diverse opinions, the kind of diversity that matters, especially if you're at a company that, you know, what you want to be competitive and successful. You need different kinds of thinkers. So that's interesting. Ford joins Harley Davidson, Tractor Supply, John Deere, and other companies in revising or pulling back on their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, support for gay pride marches, and LGBTQ events, strategies to slow climate change, and other social policies. Also, let me go back up here to this quote. You know what else is interesting, guys? I just realized they don't have equity in here, which is amazing. The only problem with inclusive is that when the woke say it, they mean exclusive. That's what they mean. That's why it's a problem, because when they say inclusive, like a lot of their cult words, it means the opposite. Like when they say anti-racist, they mean racist. When they say inclusive, they mean exclusive. They mean only woke allowed here. Only woke ideology. We're going to make this company a cult is what they mean when they say inclusive. Otherwise, if that word, what it's supposed to mean, if a cult had not tried and been somewhat successful in changing the definition, what that word is supposed to mean is not a bad thing. Great. Okay. So maybe they're using that. They're really thinking about what that word means, and they're like, we're reclaiming it. You know why? Because they didn't include the one that is a bad thing. They didn't include equity here. They didn't say we're still committed to inclusive workspaces, diverse perspectives and thinking styles, which is great. They didn't say and equity. They left equity out on purpose. Equity is a terrible thing. Equity is not equality of opportunity or access or anything. Equity is forced outcomes. Equity is using racism and sexism and other identity groups to discriminate against some people and to privilege other people. It's un-American. It's racist and sexist. Equity is saying your hard work and your talent and your merit doesn't matter. We're going to make sure everyone ends up in the same place. Kamala Harris said this multiple times, that she loves equity because it's about making sure we all end up in the same place. Among the rubble, that's the part she didn't say. We're all equally in the dirt. No. Equity is Marxism, it's communism. It's forced outcomes. It's the opposite of freedom and liberty and getting to choose what you do and getting ahead based on hard work and talent and merit. It's the opposite of all of that. It's taking something that's not related to your character, your effort, your talent, your skill level. It's taking something like your race or your sex and saying we're going to promote you or exclude you based on this. Bullshit. And they didn't put it here. That's huge. Okay. Moving on. So that's forward. Next one's so great. Microsoft. Microsoft. This is an article from the New York Post. Microsoft reportedly fires its DEI team, becoming the latest company to ditch woke policy. This is from July 17th, 2024. Microsoft has reportedly laid off a team devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. After pouring millions of dollars into the initiative, becoming the latest major company to ditch the woke policy. The big tech giant disbanded the DEI team at the beginning of the month. That was in July of 2024, due to, quote, changing business needs. Like needing to do business, maybe? I love it. It is unclear how many employees were affected. The decision was a further sign that companies are pulling back on diversity-based initiatives. Give me 1 second. My light decided to get crazy. Okay. Fix that. The decision was a further sign that companies are pulling back on diversity-based initiatives that were put in place following the 2020 death of George Floyd and the subsequent Black Lives Matter protest campaigns. I love it. All of the advances that woke made on the back of George Floyd, a lot of these companies are finally rolling this crap back. It is so uncool now to be a part of all this woke stuff. I was shocked the other day when, let me just take this down for a second. One of my former friends who I lost during the Great Unfriending. Actually, it was after that. The Great Unfriending, when I talk about it, is when I started speaking against woke. When I left the woke cult, 2016, 2017, that was when I had my Great Unfriending. Yours may have been different timeline, right? But you know what I mean. You've been through it. If you're a person who got over your fear and started speaking against woke, you've been through it. So my Great Unfriending happened in like 2016, 2017, when I first started speaking against woke. But during the COVID years, I had another Great Unfriending. A bunch of authoritarians, a bunch of crazy leftists, really upset with me saying, hey, I don't think the government should be able to tell us what we do with our bodies. They were like, what? And I was thinking, but I thought you were like pro-choice. It's what? What? I thought we were pro-choice. No? Okay. Got really upset by that. A bunch of leftists who suddenly were on the side of big pharma and anti-science, by the way, although they said they were for science, but they were anti-science, wanted the government to force people to take an experimental treatment that had not been around long enough for longitudinal studies. They wanted to do that. They thought the government should be able to fire people from federal jobs for not taking it. A bunch of these people unfriended me around that time. And so one of these former friends who I learned at that time is a crazy woke authoritarian, not only unfriended me, she also then felt the need to kind of vague book and post crap about me. I didn't do that about her. Even I guess I'm doing it now, years later, but 4 years later. But she did it. She did a bunch of posts and stuff. It was like whatever about her friend who became right wing and is in the Trump cult now or whatever. All this projection because she's in that woke cult, right? So it's been 4 years, and I was just curious as I was preparing for this episode, and as I mentioned at the beginning, woke is uncool now. And a lot of people who just 4 short years ago didn't understand what we were talking about have now themselves left the woke cult. And if you're like me, you occasionally hear from those people. Occasionally I hear from people who apologize even and are like, I understand what you're talking about now. I get it. And I was just curious if this friend had woken up, and I checked her online, and nope, still has in the year of our Lord 2024, still has a Black Lives Matter banner, which I'm like, how much of a sucker can you be? Did you miss the news about how the Patricia Kohlers like took all that BLM money that you donated and bought a bunch of mansions with it? Like, what? Did you miss it? What? Still got the BLM banner up. Like, what? It's just, there's still a few hangers on like that, I guess. Holdouts. They're like the ones who in in Alexander Solzhenitsyn book, his book about being put in Gulag or Archipelago, about being in the labor camps, right? There's this part in the book where he talks about people who were part of the party who got picked up and arrested, because eventually they come for everyone, right? These totalitarians, these authoritarians, these Marxists, these communists, like, they'll come for everyone. Like, you can never be pure enough. And there was this part about how there were some party loyalists who eventually got snitched on, by the Stasi or the spy. They encouraged spying on your neighbor and your family members and turning them in and stuff. There were some of these people who ended up in the prison camps who, even in the prison camp, was holding on to the ideology. Even in the labor camp, would not speak ill of Marxism, of communism. Like, that's just crazy. So it's human nature, though. I think there's going to be some people who, no matter how bad things get with woke, they're going to be, pry it from my dying hands kind of woke people. That I think it's a very small percentage. Maybe not even 1 percentage point of the people who are in it. I think it's very small. But there are some of those oddballs who are just like, gonna ride it till the wheels fall off. Yeah. Yarn and Chicken says, yeah, useful idiots are still idiots. It's true. Jacob, maybe she's part of the BLM branch that decided to support Trump because they're actually reasonable. No, I can assure you, no. No. And this person was like, we need to defund the police. We need to defund the police. And then, like, a bunch of stuff about defunding the police. And then the very next week, put up pictures of a thief from her security cameras of a thief stealing a package off of her porch, and is like, the police will do nothing. I tried filing a police report. She's like, they don't do anything. I'm like, wow, you would lie. The post right before this, you're like, defund the police. And then you're like, hey, this person stole my Amazon package. Why don't the cops care? Oh man. Funny. Okay. Okay, we did the Microsoft one. Did we? Yeah, we did. Let's move on. We've got John Deere. John Deere giving up on the woke. Here we go. This is a CNN article from July 18, 2024. John Deere backs away from diversity and inclusion efforts after a conservative backlash. John Deere says it will no longer sponsor, quote, social or cultural awareness events. Yes. Thank you. Again, like with Tractor Supply, all you need to do is sell us what you're supposed to sell us. Make a better product and sell it to us. Quit trying to push ideology on us, especially an evil, racist, sexist ideology that grooms children and wants to mutilate kids. Quit trying to push that on us. That's not your job. Sell us a tractor. That's it. Becoming the latest major U.S. company to distance itself from diversity and inclusion measures after being targeted by conservative backlash. Hey, and liberal backlash. In a statement posted Tuesday to social media platform X, the farm equipment maker also said it would audit all training materials, quote, to ensure the absence of socially motivated messages in compliance with federal and local laws. Thank you. Thank you. It did not specify what those messages would be. I don't know, maybe messages about how white people have privilege and fragility and, black people don't know how to show up to work on time because that's a whiteness thing. And all this other racist crap that you guys have been pushing. Maybe that's what you need to make sure is not in your training materials. I'm going to get a bit faster moving through these because I feel like I'm taking a lot of time going through them. Okay, moving on. Walmart. This is a huge one. Walmart's DEI rollback. This is an article from the AP. Walmart's DEI rollback signals a profound shift in the wake of Trump's election victory. And this one is very recent. November 26, 2024. Walmart's sweeping rollback of its diversity policies is the strongest indication yet of a profound shift taking hold at U.S. companies that are reevaluating the legal and political risks associated with bold programs to bolster historically underrepresented groups. Put it another way, bold programs to spread racism and sexism among their workforce and to break a whole bunch of federal laws preventing that in the process, by the way. And to discriminate against people in the hiring process based on what race or sex they are. That's the other thing they did. The changes announced by the world's biggest retailer on Monday followed a string of legal victories by conservative groups that have filed an onslaught of lawsuits challenging corporate and federal programs aimed at elevating minority and women-owned businesses and employees. Yeah, you know why? Because that's racist and sexist. Elevating, why don't you say discriminating against? Which groups are you discriminating against when you do that? The retreat from such programs crystallized with the election of former President Donald Trump, whose administration is certain to make dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion programs a priority. He better. That's why we voted for him. Trump's incoming deputy chief of policy will be his former advisor, Stephen Miller, who leads a group called America First Legal that has aggressively challenged corporate DEI policies. This is just winning. Are you guys tired of the winning yet? Quote, this is another domino to fall, and it is a rather large domino. Walmart, yes. Among other changes, Walmart said it will no longer give priority treatment to suppliers owned by women or minorities. Thank you. Thank you. As a woman, I don't want to be denied something because of my sex. That's sexist. I also don't want to be given something because of my sex. That's sexist, and it's insulting and it's condescending. And you know what it does is it grows sexism. Because if you're in a culture that does that or a country that does that, then everyone looks at you and thinks that you just got that because you're a woman. It is sexist. It creates sexism. It tells people you didn't get what you got based on merit and achievement. Get rid of it. Quit elevating places that are owned by women or people of color. Quit it. Quit discriminating against places that are owned by men or white people. Quit it. Or Asians. Quit discriminating against Asians in college admissions. Get rid of racism and sexism. So it's no longer going to do that. It says the company will not renew a 5-year commitment for a racial equity center set up in 2020 after the George Floyd incident, right? George Floyd death. And it pulled out of a prominent gay rights index. That's the HRC thing they pulled out too. I love it. Schweier said the biggest trigger for companies making such changes is simply a reassessment of their legal risk exposure, which began after U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in June of 2023 that ended affirmative action in college admissions. You know why? Because it's racist and sexist to discriminate against people on the basis of their race or their sex. It's illegal. It's like they finally got the message. I don't think it was just that they finally get the message. I think it's that we've shifted the culture enough for them to be able to do this. I love it. The Walmart one is huge. Huge. Lowe's. Here's another article from the AP. Lowe's changes some DEI policies amid legal attacks on diversity programs and activist pressure. This article is from August 28, 2024 from the AP. Home improvement chain Lowe's is scaling back its diversity, equity, inclusion policies, joining the ranks of several other companies that altered their programs since the U.S. Supreme Court outlawed affirmative action in college admissions, or after facing a conservative backlash online. In an internal memo shared by Lowe's with the Associated Press, its executive leadership said the retailer began reviewing its programs following the court's July 2023 ruling, and the company recently decided to combine its resource groups, which were for, quote, individual groups representing diverse sections of our associate population, into one umbrella organization. Hey, yeah, you know what? It's 2024. Maybe it's back-asswards to divide your employees into groups like, this is the Black people's group. This is the white people's group. Hey, where's the Latinx group? Only the white people call it that, by the way. The woke white people. Where's the Latinx group? I go to the gay people group. What about the straight people? You can't have a straight people group. That's homophobic. Where's the white people group? Maybe you should just have an employee group, right? Right? Okay. This is an article. I was like, I don't know if I want to read. I think this one's from, oh no, it is from 2024. Wait a minute. Let me cover a few more hits, and then if we have time, I'll come to this one. I'm going to share this instead. So this is a map. We just looked at some of the big corporations. Oh, Harley Davidson. Thank you in the chat for mentioning Harley Davidson. I've got it right here. A CNN article, Harley Davidson dropping diversity initiatives after right-wing anti-DEI campaign. This is from August of 2024, and it's very similar to the others. And guess whose name is mentioned also, putting pressure on them? Robbie Starbuck. Thank you, Robbie Starbuck. And it's very similar. That they're cutting a lot of this stuff. They're going to end their relationship with the HRC. I just love it. Thank you, Harley Davidson. Another win. Okay, so that was the section on some of the corporate wins. Now I just want to point out some of the state wins. Now, a lot of states have passed anti-DEI bills to try and root this sexist and racist indoctrination out of their schools, public schools in the state, out of some of the like public facilities, out of the government, the state government. And so this is an article from early 2024, March 2nd, 2024, in NBC News. Map, see which states have introduced or passed anti-DEI bills. Now, I have a more current list too, but I just wanted to read you a little bit of this one. It says Republican lawmakers have introduced hundreds of bills this session to quell diversity and inclusion programs at colleges, industries, and the government. Republican lawmakers in more than 30 states have introduced or passed more than 100 bills to either restrict or regulate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the current legislative session, according to an NBC News analysis. That was in March. It's even better now. Which states have introduced anti-DEI bills? And if you look through, they have, at the time in March, the ones that were enacted. Texas is one of the three in March of 2024. You can see these orange ones here enacted, introduced is blue, and passed at least one chamber is yellow, which is great. Following the murder of George Floyd in May 2020, I should put murder in quotes, and the national protest that followed, schools, companies, and individuals sought more solutions to become more racially and socially inclusive. You mean exclusive, but continue. But those efforts have invited a backlash, with conservative media outlets, politicians, lawyers, and social media influencers now countering DEI efforts in several industries, from higher education institutions to airlines. Yeah, imagine that. Maybe, and maybe, just maybe, if you were to pick two professions where you really want to make sure that people advance based on merit and how skilled they are, how good they are at the profession, instead of based on their race or sex or something else that's meaningless, maybe airline pilot would be one of the top two of like, hey, I really want to make sure I have the best airline pilot. I could give a rat's bum what race or sex he or she is. I just give me the best pilot. I want to make sure it's the best pilot, right? That people advance based on being the best pilot. The other profession I would say, doctors, surgeons, like medicine, like maybe, just maybe, spitballing here, it should be doctors. We choose doctors, we advance doctors based on how good they are at curing people and saving lives, not based on what race or sex they are. Maybe, just maybe. Why do you think it's weird that we would care about it when it comes to airlines, right? No, it's not weird at all. In the months since the Supreme Court restricted race-conscious college admissions, I love how NBC, whoever wrote this is woke AF, because they call it race-conscious college admissions. Do you know what it is? Racist college admissions. Racist. Groups have filed complaints and lawsuits against minority-owned businesses with equity initiatives. Equity initiatives, also discriminatory initiatives. That's what that means. States such as Florida, Texas, and Utah are among a handful whose legislatures have approved bans on DEI efforts at higher education and public offices. Yeah, because you know what? Currently, it's illegal to discriminate against people based on their race or sex. If you don't like that, then get rid of that instead of trying to find ways around it by calling your racist and sexist discrimination, what did they call it? Race conscious hiring and college admissions. If you think that in the US we should be able to discriminate, then make that argument and get rid of the protections against that. But don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a hypocrite who's like, I don't believe in racist and sexist discrimination, and I don't think you should be able to do that. And like, for example, they say things like, they go even further. They think the government should be able to force people to participate in rituals and acts and services. They think the federal government should be able to force like a Muslim opera singer to perform at a Christian wedding, even if she doesn't agree with that religion or want to be a part of that wedding. They think that the government should be able to force a cake baker to participate in a gay wedding, even if it goes against his religious faith to participate in that wedding. Like, they take it a step further than selling people, no discrimination when it comes to selling goods to people. They're like, they want the government to be able to say, like, the government, which is, when you boil it down, is like men with guns. It's force. They want to use force to be like, you get in there and you make that gay wedding cake, you take it to that gay wedding. Like, you don't have a right to politely decline doing that ceremony. What? Anyway, they say they're for these laws and they take it a step further, right? They say they're for these anti-discrimination laws, but they want to be able to discriminate. They want to have it both ways. They want to have their gay wedding cake and eat it too. They want to say no discrimination, but also we want to discriminate, but only against men and straight people and white people, and sometimes, and also Asians. We want to be able to discriminate against Asians. Like, that's really, I mean, that's what they do. So anyway, this article, again, as I said, was from March. I just wanted to show you the map. And this is a huge win in 2024 to have so many states that are passing this legislation saying, I guess we have to get really specific with language here, that, like, yeah, racist discrimination is racist discrimination. And so you've got all these states that are passing these bills now. Here's another tab I wanted to show you. What's funny is, we're making gains and we're scoring win after win, when, if you look this up, you will find tons of these leftist woke organizations freaking out and they're trying to organize, and they have all these websites like this one where they paint it in such a negative light, like they're completely upset that they won't be able to continue being racist and sexist in their hiring practices and in their college admissions. Like, they're so angry. And so they have all these, look at this one. This is called Movement Advancement Project, MAP. Now, if you're a keen-eyed person who's awake, you're probably wondering, hey, is that a coincidence that they call it MAP? No, probably not. You know how these people are. MAP, which is their new acronym for pedophile. That's what they're telling you to call those people now, to call them minority attracted person. Minor attracted person, I guess is what they say. That's their new woke way of referring to a pedo. And this organization was like, I wonder what acronym we should pick. Let's go with MAP. Anyway. I'm kidding. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. It's probably not. I'm probably taking it too far, but it's just a little weird. Okay. So they have this here, and they say, this media press release from July: from state legislatures and courthouses to Congress, universities, and business boardrooms, diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, also known as DEI, are under attack in the United States. Far-right extremists. Is that what we are? I'm a liberal. Far-right extremists and conservative lawmakers are politicizing these initiatives in an effort to regress back to a time when communities of color, women, LGBTQ people, and others were marginalized and silenced. No. We're trying to go back to a time, that brief sliver of time, where our country was progressing and was saying, like Martin Luther King said, we're going to look at the content of a person's character and look at them as an individual. And we're not going to judge them or treat them differently based on what race or sex they are. We're trying to go back to that liberal vision for America. We're not going back. You guys are the ones who are fighting, literally fighting, to be able to discriminate against and marginalize people based on their race and their sex. That's what you're fighting for. We're against that. You're the baddies here. But they're really upset. They go, today, the Movement Advancement Project released A first of its kind report dismantling DEI, a coordinated attack on American values. No, DEI is an attack on American values. The report breaks down the strategies opponents have used to target DEI within government, education, the private sector, and further demonstrates the harmful impacts these calculated, widespread attacks have upon our communities. Although they may seem isolated, these coordinated attacks purposefully downplay experiences of discrimination and exclusion that many Americans face in the halls of government, schools, and places of business. You guys want to legally enforce discrimination and exclusion. You want to enshrine it in our laws. You want to be able to do it in our laws. But they've got this map. I like looking at the woke sites because you know that they are going to, in trying to like raise money and get what they want from their woke audience, they're always likely going to take it a little bit further. They're going to exaggerate just a little bit. And so I like looking to see what they say because, you know, it's going to be the most exaggerated version of what's happening. And that's what I want to see. Because look at all the wins. Like what I'm saying is they basically make us seem better than we are and all this. It's like great, awesome. Look at all these wins. Anyway, so on this map here, this is in the middle of 2024, and they say the ones in the darkest color orange here is a state that has already enacted at least one anti-DEI law. The middle shade of orange is a state that's introduced at least one anti-DEI bill. And the one that's kind of yellow is a state that has not introduced any anti-DEI bill. And there's very few of those. And they're all like California, New Jersey, New Mexico, Maryland, Vermont, Delaware, DC, Rhode Island. That's the ones that haven't. I also like to look at the ACLU. Yarn and chicken. Nice to see that my state is still super racist. Does that mean it's super woke? Oh, and Hawaii. I left off Hawaii. Kevin says, bad New Mexico. I expected this behavior from California, but from you, I'm disappointed. Yeah. New Mexico. Something's up with New Mexico, man. In the election also. Okay. Let me see if I've missed anything. Oh, I have. Just want to thank two people. Jason. Hey, Jason. It's been a long time. Jason, thank you for the super chat for $6.99. Canadian Buckaroo says, a win against woke fairly soon will be Justin Trudeau's departure. Canada's Conservative Party will likely achieve a supermajority in an election. What? Jason, I've been loosely following this. I followed some of Billboard Chris's posts about it, but it looks like they're about to have their own Trump kind of movement, their own awakening, and Trudeau's either going to step down or he's going to lose. What I've heard from Canadians, I wonder if you feel the same way, Jason, is that they're like, because there's these hints that he's going to step down. They're like, no, we don't want him to escape his humiliating loss. We want the election and we want him to be, beaten into the ground. And so I wish you guys well. I hope that this comes true. I hope you have your own cultural tide turning moment. And thank you for the super chat. That's awesome. Southeastern Kaiju for $5. Good to see you. Thank you. Says 3 Body Problem had a scene like that. No one repents. 3 Body Problem. This is from earlier, so I'm missing the context, but I'm going to write this down so I can look it up later. So I know what you're talking about. 3 Body Problem. Thank you for that. Okay. Oh. Yarn and Chicken says super not woke. Old school millennial. Keri, where'd you get that Trump blowing bubblegum t-shirt? You know what? A friend of mine, a Facebook friend of mine had it, and she said, just Google it. So I did. That's why I'm going to tell you the same thing. I found it at some third party seller on Amazon or something somewhere. You'll find it if you look for it. There are lots of people selling it. Maybe I should sell it. How does that work? But yeah, just do a search for it. You'll find it. Okay. It's a fun shirt. I like wearing it because even people who hate Trump, well, not the ones who are most severe, like the most severely afflicted with TDS, but people who just sort of moderately dislike him, or maybe they hate him, but they're not crazy. They will still laugh at that shirt. They still think the shirt's funny. And I love that because it's like everybody laughs at it. It's like that pin of him with his hair going, fuzzy hair sticking out. People laugh at it, even if I like seeing people laugh. So that shirt's a cool shirt. Okay, this map, we're looking at the ACLU. So the ACLU completely lost its way a few years ago. I've talked about that before. They had an internal coup. There were documents that came out that proved this, and they ceased to be, after the coup, they got rid of all of the old school liberals, the actual liberals, classical liberals who cared about civil liberties, which is supposed to be their mission statement, the American Civil Liberties Union. They got rid of all those people who cared about civil liberties, and they just kept all the woke people. And at that time, they ceased being about civil liberties, although they didn't change their name. And they became an organization that pushes and enforces woke and tries to push for woke, actually at odds with civil liberties. And so they're thoroughly, I'm a person who used to be a card carrying ACLU member. That's really shameful today based on what they are today. If you're a young person, you may not know what these people used to actually care about civil liberties, about freedom of speech and freedom of association, whatever. They would actually do lawsuits that defended concepts like freedom of speech, even if it was defending deplorable, disgusting people, like, or races. Like, they would do lawsuits on behalf of white nationalists and KKK members and stuff to be able to say what they think. The ACLU was like, because not because they agreed with those people, but because they were defending freedom of speech for everyone. That's what they used to be. Now they don't give two craps about civil liberties or free speech or anything. They're all about trying to use the force of law to push this woke orthodoxy on everyone, to push this illiberal, anti-liberty belief system on everyone. They're exactly the opposite of what they used to be. Douglas reminds us that the KKK was Democrats. It's true. Old school millennial. Keri, if you sell it in women's size, especially as a modest tank top, I would buy it and support your channel. You're awesome and happy blessed new year. 2023, 2024 sucked, but for me, but God is always good to me. Oh, I'm sorry you had 2 tough years. You know what? I had 2022 was like a real sucky year for me, really sucky. And then 2023 was like halfway sucky. And, we go through those times, and it's like once you come out on the other side, and if you've been going through 2 sucky years, and I know, and God's got you, like, you're going to come out on the other side. And those 2 years, if you're anything like me, will provide relief, so that when you have the good years, you're even more grateful and you really enjoy it and appreciate it because you've got something to compare it to. So I'm wishing a very blessed 2025 for you. And I have a friend helping me with the merch store. So I'm going to see if I have to figure out if I can actually do that shirt. I was kind of joking, but I have to see. If I can do it, I will. I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Okay. ACLU. This from their website. The ACLU is tracking 574 anti-LGBTQ bills in the US. Now, I first came across this because there was some woke person on Twitter who was just copy and pasting stuff at me, like they do, because they don't know how to speak on their own. They go and copy and paste stuff. And he said something like, there's 574 anti-LGBT laws proposed, and I was like, what? That doesn't sound right at all. What are you talking about? So I looked up that number. I looked up the exact quote actually, and I found the site. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where he's just copying and pasting. So I came here, and at the time this year, I looked at a bunch of these bills. And as you might guess, these are not anti-LGBTQ bills. They're not. These are bills. If you go, you can go through each one. Now, they don't make it easy. If you click on this, you would think, oh, that's going to take me to the bill to read it, right? No, it doesn't. They don't want you to actually be informed. They don't want the people they're trying to manipulate and control to be informed. So they're not going to make it easy for them to read the actual bill. But you can go and look up the bill. I have one pulled up. We're going to take just a really, really quick look at one of them, because most of these are about making sure that like boys are not allowed in girls' bathrooms at schools, that men are not allowed in the girls' bathroom with your daughters. That's not anti-LGBTQ. That's like pro protecting your kids. Okay. There's other stuff in here about protecting children from medical experimentation, from mutilation, and from sterilization, things that they're not capable of consenting to as a child. Protecting them from big pharma, from butchers. That's what a lot of these are about, saying, hey, just like in the progressive countries that have banned these mutilating and sterilizing procedures for children, just like in Finland, just like in the UK, we are in Norway. We're gonna not do this for kids. These are states that are saying, no, you can't do this to children. And because they're always changing language, again, to go back to this point for a second, like a cult, they're always changing language to get around existing laws. Like to get around laws that say you can't discriminate against people based on race and sex. They're like, this isn't racist discrimination. It's race consciousness hiring. Yeah, that's the ticket. It's race conscious hiring. Like, no, it's racist hiring. But they change the words. And so to get around existing laws that say, hey, you can't abuse kids, they're like, oh, this isn't child abuse, right? It's just gender affirming care, right? That's the ticket. Yeah, I know that we're cutting off their breasts and their penises and their kids, and they can't. How can they consent to that when they can't consent to getting a tattoo or driving a car, or buying a gun, or sex or anything? Like they can't consent to all this whole long list of things like drinking alcohol or anything. But somehow they're able to consent to us permanently cutting off their breasts when they're 13. Or cutting off their, castrating them, or taking hormones and puberty blockers that cause chemical castration, Somehow they can consent to this. And they're like, this isn't child abuse, though, because we're calling it gender affirming care. Okay. So now these states are like, I guess we're going to have to pass bills saying, hey, you can't mutilate and sterilize kids. That's abuse. And that's what these laws are. They're not anti-gay or trans. These are bills that say, no, you can't do this to children, you disgusting people. When you're an adult, do whatever you want. But you can't do this to kids. You can't mutilate and sterilize children and abuse them in this way. That's what these bills are. So let's look at one of them. So they have this whole list, right? And all of these are wins against woke. Every single one of these. Now, the ones that are in, I'm trying to remember their color coding, because they have different colors based on if they passed or not. Like, let's see, passed into law is, or maybe the color coding isn't for that. I can't remember. Anyway, this top one here passed, but they tell you on the right, some of these were defeated, but hey, it's great that we're even introduced. Some are advancing, defeated, and then some are passed into law. So this top one here was passed into law. This was in Alabama 129. Now I pulled it up here, which again, they don't make that easy to get to this, the text of the bill. which they should if they cared about giving you information and letting you make up your own mind. But here's the bill. What did they call it? They said it was an anti-LGBTQ bill, and it imposed other school restrictions. Now, if you scroll through this, here's the bill title: Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Certain public entities prohibited from maintaining an office that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Great, because those are racist discrimination programs, sorry. Certain programs related to divisive concepts or diversity, equity, inclusion prohibited. Promotion and endorsement of certain divisive concepts in certain public settings prohibited. Exceptions provided. Public institutions of higher education required to designate multi-occupancy restrooms based on biological sex. So that's the summary. And if you scroll through it, I'm just going to read a little bit from the beginning. Relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion, to prohibit certain public entities from maintaining. Oh, they're repeating that part I already read to you. Here's where they do the definitions. They define terms. For the purposes of this act, the following terms have the following meanings. Contractor, for example, means any individual or entity that provides services to a state agency, public institution of higher education, or local board of education. Divisive concepts. This is how they define it. Any of the following concepts. A, that any race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior. Does that sound like radical right-wing extremism to you? If you're an honest person, no, it doesn't. Not at all. This is what the woke left opposes. They are not liberal. This is a very liberal concept, that it is divisive to say that any race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior. That's a divisive concept. The woke left says, no, it's not. That's the whole basis of our belief system. Just like the white supremacists. Okay, they also, number B, letter B. They also consider it a divisive concept that individuals should be discriminated against or adversely treated because of their race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. Again, does this sound like crazy right-wing extremism to you? That it's divisive to discriminate against people on the basis of race and sex, ethnicity, etc.? Is that right-wing? Or is that liberalism? Letter C. They also define a divisive concept as teaching that the moral character of an individual is determined by his or her race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. Again, this is all great, normal, American liberal boilerplate stuff. D, they say it's a divisive concept to teach that by virtue of an individual's race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin, the individual is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. Is that crazy right-wing extremism? No. E, they say it's divisive to teach that individuals, by virtue of race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin, are inherently responsible for actions committed in the past by other members of their race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. Sounds great to me. They say, furthermore, letter F, that it's divisive to teach that fault, blame, or bias should be assigned to members of a race, a color, a religion, a sex, ethnicity, or national origin on the basis of those things. Sounds good. Letter G, they say it's divisive to teach that any individual should accept, acknowledge, affirm, or assent to a sense of guilt or complicity or a need to apologize on the basis of their race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. Sounds great. And then letter H, they say it is divisive to teach that meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic, are racist or sexist. Yeah, it is. Then they have this number 3 here, diversity, equity, inclusion program. And they define that as any program, class, training, seminar, or other event where attendance is based on an individual's race, sex, gender, identity, ethnicity, national origin, or sexual orientation, or that otherwise violates this act. This term does not include programs, classes, training, seminars, or other events that are necessary to comply with applicable state law, federal law, or court order. So they have that exception there. They define public institution of higher education and student. And so then they say, this is where they get into the meat of it. Section 2, a state agency or local board of education or public institution of higher education may not do any of the following. They may not, number 1, sponsor any diversity, equity, and inclusion program or maintain any office, physical location, or department that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion programs as defined earlier. Number 2, so no institution of higher learning may direct or compel a student, employee, or contractor to personally affirm, adopt, or adhere to one of these divisive concepts, right? You can't force them to make a statement like a loyalty pledge. You can't force them with a struggle session to make a loyalty pledge to your racist and sexist belief system. Number 3, they can't require their students, employees, or contractors to attend or participate in any of these DEI programs or trainings. They can't require that. Awesome. Number 4, they can't require a student, employee, or contractor to share his or her personal point of view on any of these divisive subjects outside of an academic setting. And then they have that the part where they gave some exceptions, right? Section 4, 3B. They say that an institution of higher learning, number 5, cannot require its students, employees, or contractors to participate as part of any required curriculum or mandatory professional training in an activity that involves lobbying at the state or local level for legislation related to DEI, related to one of these divisive concepts. They can't require students to do that. Go lobby here for credit. They can't do that. Sounds great. Number 6, they can't penalize or discriminate against any student, employer, or contractor on the basis of his or her refusal to support, believe, endorse, embrace, confess, or otherwise assent to one of these divisive concepts. Number 7, they cannot condition enrollment or attendance in a class, training, or orientation solely on the basis of race or color. Wow, that's basically saying you can't do racist discrimination in your college enrollment. Number 8, they can't authorize or expend funding or apply for or accept a grant, federal funding, or private funding for the purpose of compelling assent to any divisive concept or any other purpose prohibited in this act. Like all of these things, this is what they're calling an anti-LGBT bill. This is what ACLU calls an anti-LGBT bill. Why? Because it's cutting DEI. This is one of the ones that passed. This is SB 129 in Alabama. It's great. I want to show you how the ACLU Alabama talks about it. They're so mad. Here, look at this. ACLU Alabama says, oppose. They don't like it. They oppose it. Well, too bad it passed. But they have this whole thing here, and they say Senate Bill 129 prevents state agencies and local boards of education and institutions of higher education from sponsoring diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI programs or offices. That's true. The bill prevents staff, student, and faculty organizations from hosting DEI events and prohibits the teaching of divisive concepts. That's true. A term defined in the legislation under a wide-ranging and vague criterion. Is that true? I don't think so. We read through at least half of it. It was vague as the last word I would use to describe it. It's very specific that like you can't teach that one race is superior or inferior. It's pretty specific. It says you can't teach that one race of people should have guilt because of their race. You can't teach that. It's very specific. The bill states that no state agency, local board of education, or institution of higher education may compel students, employees, or contractors to affirm these concepts, including training, orientations, or coursework that advocates, acts upon, or promotes divisive concepts. And it also says that if any employees violate this, they can be disciplined or terminated. Okay, so the ACLU of Alabama says, our position, we oppose this. We oppose Senate Bill 129. This bill is intended to have a chilling effect on discourse regarding race, sex, sexuality, and national origin. A chilling effect? It's actually getting rid of all this crazy, censorious, woke orthodoxy, where people can only speak woke. It's going to open up national discourse. It's going to allow more points of view other than woke. It says it's a form of censorship. It says it's an anti-truth bill. This is what the ACLU calls a bill that says, hey, you can't discriminate against people on the basis of race and sex. And they're like, how dare you? They're so opposed to civil liberties. They're like, we want to be able to discriminate. Okay. What else do I have pulled up? I've got some more stuff about Google and Meta, Facebook, who we mentioned, and others slashing their DEI related jobs. We kind of covered that into the Facebook one. Here's one from the UK about what I mentioned earlier, where a lot of these quote unquote progressive countries are doing these systematic medical reviews and saying, hold up, no, you can't mutilate and sterilize kids. We're going to stop doing this so-called gender affirming care for kids. And the England, I'm so tired, guys. I told you I'm having some health issues here at the end of the year. And I think part of it is like, it's affecting my concentration. Okay. So the England, the UK is limiting gender transitions for youths. U.S. legislators are watching. Now, this is an article from earlier in the year. This is from March of 2024. And I'm going to read just the beginning. Legislators in at least 2 U.S. states are citing a recent decision in England to restrict gender transitions for young people as support for their own related proposals. They weren't the first to turn to other countries, notably in Europe, for policy and research ideas. Lawmakers across the U.S., where at least 23 states now have tightened or removed access to transgender health care for minors, have routinely cited non-U.S. research or policies as justification for their legislation. Yet, leading health organizations in the U.S. and Europe continue to, quote, decisively endorse gender-affirming care for both transgender youths and adults. Yeah, well, that's because these organizations in the US are completely corrupted with woke. You can go back and watch. This year I covered the WPATH files, which was another big win against woke this year. Is these journalists, Mia Hughes and Michael Schellenberger, put together this whole report on these leaked files from WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And all in these files, which I covered in a multi-part series, you can look at and you can also watch. There's video and there's leaked text messages and message board messages between all these doctors and these activists in WPATH. And you can read and you can watch these doctors admit on camera that in 100% of cases, Marcy Bowers, the president of WPATH, said this on camera, that in 100% of cases where they gave little boys puberty blockers, boys in Tanner stage 2, so that's like age 11, where they gave them puberty blockers, that those boys were unable to ever achieve sexual function in adulthood. That's chemical castration. That's what Marcy Bowers is saying. That was admitted on camera. They also admitted on camera in a different video, these doctors, that these children who are being told that to sign these consent forms to sterilize and mutilate themselves have no idea what they're consenting to. And these doctors on camera, we watched it. They're laughing and joking about the fact. They know it. They know the kids aren't capable of consent. It's sick. And so it says Yeah, leading health organizations continue to endorse this crap. Not for long. Not for long. Because of these big wins in Europe, we are going to start winning here. I said this in my speech this year before the Austin City Council, and I truly believe it. We are going to ban this barbarism against children in all 50 states in the US. We are. It's going to be a slow go at first, but once we get rolling, we're banning it. Just like those DEI things that we're seeing, the DEI bills in all these states that are passing and all the corporations that are getting rid of their DEI. We're going to do the same thing for these uh, these butchers that are doing this to children. State after state, we're getting rid of this crap. Here's another article about the UK. This one's from later in the year. Let me see. Oh, yeah, this is from this month. December 13th. The UK is the latest country to ban puberty blockers for trans kids. Trans kids should be in quotes. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a trans. It's a kid. Quit locking them into this. Quit locking them into it. Just say kids. This whole idea that there's no trans kid. There are kids who are gender nonconforming. There are kids who are autistic. There are kids who are abused. There are kids who have other disorders that they're being treated for. And a whole bunch of these kids get lumped in and called trans. They get locked into this path that leads them to medical and surgical transition, that leads them to, in some cases, sterilize and mutilate themselves. And, you're doing them a disservice, all these children a disservice by using that language and calling them that. They're kids. Quit putting that label on them. But if you scroll down into the article, it says, the United Kingdom has banned puberty blockers for children and adolescents under age 18. Perfect. That's all you need to say. For children and adolescents. You don't need to say for trans kids. No, for children and adolescents under 18, making it the latest country in Western Europe to limit access to the treatment for transgender and gender questioning youth. Just say gender questioning youth. The rule extends a temporary ban issued earlier this year on the sale and supply of puberty blockers, which delay the physical changes associated with puberty, such as growth of breasts, testicles, and body hair in a deeper voice. Hey, why don't you talk about the other stuff it does? Like the chemical castrations that Marcy Bowers, president of WPATH, was talking about on camera. They're experimenting on kids with these puberty blockers. But this was a win. This is a win in the UK. I mentioned the WPATH files. Those dropped this year. As I mentioned, you can go back and watch my video series on them, or you can go and read them all yourself. If you are in the Venn diagram of people who are interested in true crime and people who are interested in like culture and ideology in this culture war that we're fighting, if you like both of those things, I think you'll really love reading through the things like the WPATH files and the Twitter files, because you care about the culture and ideology part and you care about ending this abuse of kids, but also your true crime brain is like, ooh, look at all this original source material I can read through. Like your true crime brain is going to go crazy because there's all kinds of documents and footage and stuff you can look at. So go read the WPATH files. You'll enjoy it. And it's a win. It's a win that came out this year. It's helped. It's led to a lot of the legislation that's being proposed in these states in the US that are saying, no, we're not going to do this to kids. Okay. Let me see. Yeah, that's the other way that it's like true crime, John. He says the WPATH files were rough. Yeah, like true crime, you're gonna have to like. It may be too much for you, but if you can read true crime, you can read through this. It is rough though. It's hard to stomach some of it. It's rough what they're doing. Okay, I'm gonna have to wrap it up because it's been a little over 2 hours and I'm starting to lose my voice and my concentration, which is why I'm messing up some words. I think I'm reading too fast and I'm going to wrap it up. I've covered a lot of the corporate wins the wins that we made at the corporate level in 2024 against woke, some of the state, some we didn't get as heavily into that, but the bills that they're freaking out about, and they're calling it anti-DEI bills, they're calling anti-trans bills, anti-LGBTQ bills. It's great. I didn't even get into the abortion ones. It's great that the states are taking this into their own hands and saying, we're going to stop it here at the state level. I'm really encouraged by that. I'm most encouraged by the biggest win against woke this year, which is Trump winning, and all the possibility that that gives us for 2025. And yeah, I'm looking forward. As I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of battles this year, and I'll probably cover those in some future videos. But since this is the last video of 2024, I wanted it to be like, look at all the stuff. Look at all the stuff that we've done culturally. And you should feel good about it. And you should feel inspired. And you should feel hopeful, especially if you've gone through any of what they call like the black pill moments of what's happening to this world kind of moments. You should feel good. There are more people waking up every day. There are more people speaking up against this every day. And I know I keep going back to the election, but it was just so encouraging because of this big coalition of all different kinds of people who came together to vote against woke. And that's encouraging and inspiring. And I hope that you're inspired by it. Thank you guys. Jacob says, keep pushing. They are on their heels. Yes, you guys, listen to Jacob. Keep pushing. They are on their heels. I love it. I love it. And John, Keri, take care of yourself. Thank you. I'm going to. I don't know what, like I said, my whole body just end of the year is like, I used to run marathons, and the first marathon I did was in San Francisco, so a while back. And my body feels like it at the end of a marathon when it would just give up. Like you cross the finish line and then just like collapse. At least I did. I'm like, I'm done. It's over. Put me in a wheelbarrow and push me away. Like, and that's how it feels. It feels like maybe it's like a marathon of fighting woke or something. I don't know. This whole year, past few years, just like anyway, my body. Has this happened to you guys? It's like I'm done. Put me in the wheelbarrow and push me away. Sandman says, we are just starting here in Canada, if that. You are, but it's so, like I said, loosely, Sandman, following the news in Canada, and it's really inspiring. Jason is here from Canada. He says, I listen to your show frequently. I'm just not usually around when you're live. Oh, well, it's good to see you. I do the live shows now. The plan is to keep doing them Mondays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Central. Instead of 1 p.m., we're doing them at 2 because I've got 2 new gig jobs, and I had to kind of juggle things around to accommodate those. And, got to make a living. And I appreciate you guys who can make it at this new time. So Jacob says, still got a long way to go. Yeah, we do. I love your inspiring advice for everyone, Jacob. Thank you. And also, Emo Trash says, except it's still nowhere near over in terms of fighting the woke. I know. I agree. Oh, yeah. Like I said at the beginning, we've merely turned a corner. In my perspective, we've turned a corner. But no, it's far from over. We have to root all this stuff out of the law now and out of all the institutions that they've destroyed. It's far from over. We've got a lot to do. But celebrate some of the wins. Feel good about it. You need that inspiration. You need that smell and that feeling of victory to inspire you, right? To keep going. So, oh, Beard, thank you for the super chat for 50. Is that in Mexican? I think that's 50 Latinx monies. I'm joking. Thank you for this. Says trans stuff was always just a population control scheme. If everyone stopped being gay, the world would continue. If everyone stopped being straight, however, ... I think there's something to that. I think that part of the woke cult it's really weird, and it's a whole nother subject we can get into, but people have called them a death cult, and I think they are. I think they worship death in a weird way. Not just through wanting, full-term abortions, but also they're pushing all this suicide stuff. with like you can just like go to the doctor and say, kill me. And they're pushing this in the UK and in Canada and stuff, for any reason, not for having, I mean, for being depressed. They're pushing this stuff. And the trans stuff where they're sterilizing kids. And yes, I think in some weird way they're like obsessed with death. But that's another topic. And I appreciate the super chat. You're right. Spectral Citizen became a new member. Good to see you. Thank you very much. You got in just into the, what do they say? The finish line. 2024. You squeaked in. You squeaked in. Michael Collier. Hey, dude, for 499 says, Happy New Year. When is Anthony releasing his new album? Oh, if you guys are not aware, if you're new here, my husband's a musician. His name's Anthony Garcia. You can find him on YouTube at Anthony Garcia Music or online at anthonygarciamusic.com. And make sure you put music on there because there's a serial killer with his name, and that's not him. So anyway, you can find him there. And Michael, to answer your question, I don't know if he has a date set yet, but he's working on a new song that I think is going to be out in January. The album itself, I don't know if he has a date for, but he's got a couple albums that he's working on at the moment. And when he has a date, he'll announce it on his social, so you can follow him there too. And if, I'm a little biased, but my husband is amazing. You should go listen to his music. So enjoy his music. Russ Williams says, there's a serial killer with my name too. Oh, that's awful. Oh my gosh. Sandman. Sandman said that his sister was taken out by May. This is the, they're calling it medical assisted. I forget the part of the acronym, but this is the like assisted suicide thing. I am so sorry. I mean, I'm speechless. I don't know you're the first person I've heard of personally in some way who has been affected by this. So that's just, yeah, I can't even imagine. I'm sorry. Medical assistance in dying. Thank you guys. That's the acronym. I couldn't remember. Okay. You guys say a prayer for Sandman. And I appreciate you being here. I'm going to wrap up. I know I'm kind of like rolling out, but I had a great time hanging out with you guys today. I hope you have a great 2025. I hope it's blessed. Happy New Year's. This year, I didn't do like a New Year's resolution one, but I might do one at the beginning of the year. I will say this though, last thing I'll say, a few years ago, my husband and I when we got sober, we started doing New Year's Day kind of ritual of doing like a morning hike or something to celebrate the sunrise on New Year's Day. And if you're looking for something new to do that you haven't done before, like a ritual or something to get a good start to this new year, you should try it. One thing is, if you're newly sober, especially, it's really cool because you go to bed early. You don't have to worry about like I know sometimes when people are newly sober, they worry about going to a party, staying out late where people are drinking. Like they worry if it's going to tempt them and everything. You don't have to do that. You can go to bed early because you have to get early. You have to get up early for a sunrise hike. And it's actually very cool to be awake when you know that a large portion of people are still drunk or hungover and sleeping, but you're up and you're hiking already. And it's the first day of the new year and you get to see the sun coming up. So I would highly suggest it this year because I'm feeling under the weather. And because we have this new porch and balcony, we're going to sit on our new balcony and watch the sunrise and have sunrise coffee on our balcony. So I'll be watching the sunrise. I hope you will too. It's a good idea. And yeah, that's it. I don't know. I love you guys. I'll see you in the new year. Take care. I appreciate you being here. Let's see. Oh, I know I keep saying I'm going, but I'm so scatterbrained today. One last thing. So StreamYard has laid everything out differently, and I have to look through some of this. Like this whole section is called media assets now. Like on the back end, you guys can't see this, but the way I control it, there's all these new sections. And so I clicked on this one called banners, and there's all these old banners that I guess I ran at some point or another. Here's one. It's the complaint line. If you don't like Deprogrammed, if you're on the left and you hate Deprogrammed with Keri Smith, I want to make sure that your hate mail reaches me. Now, I have a lot of backlog of all kinds of mail. And if you're trying to get your hate mail through on any social media platform, I probably won't get a chance to see it. I'm sorry. If you want to make sure I see it, you have to dial this number. It's 1-719-266-2837. That's 1-719-266-2837. That's the complaint line for Deprogrammed. There's somebody standing by to take care of you, to help you out with that complaint. Make sure you dial that number. Don't delay. Also, for some reason, I had this. Follow me at Real Keri Smith for more exciting pie recipes and dog photos. I don't know what that was from, but that was in here already. And you're welcome to do that. So that's it. Hey, Force of Light. Good to see you, Michelle. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. John says, is the number legit? You got to call it. You got to call it to see. I promise something bad will happen to you. That's my complaint line. Is that Tiger's number? You got to call it. You got to call it to see. Here. Let me put it on the one more time. The complaint line is 719-266-2837. If you want to make sure I hear your hate mail, your complaints, you got to call that number. That's it. Okay. Merry Christmas. I'll see you guys in the new year. Take care. Bye.